This time I'd like to invite Ann Hayes to come up and offer the senior warden's report.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Well, my time has come. It's been a privilege. Serving this church, serving all of you, has been an honor, and I thank you for your faith in me, for the trust that you put in me and the vestry through some very, very challenging years. I want to compliment that vestry and the ones that retired 3 years ago, because during this time of my service to you, much has been accomplished. You can still see the tape lines on the floor from where the loop system went in, a benefit to those who are hard of hearing. Security cameras that we've got around the church now to protect us and to protect our children. The technology that let us continue to worship during the time of the major part of the pandemic that still keeps on giving and keeps on giving and unfortunately keeps on giving. But I just want you to know and to trust in the fact that just because I am leaving doesn't mean to say you're not going to have the same kind of service from the people who are stepping in. Your new senior warden will do a wonderful job for you, and I put my faith and trust in that and in him. I will still be here with you. I will still help this church in every way I can, but I want to thank all of you for the privilege and the honor, and I love you all. Thank you.
This is one of those Sundays where the texts that we got to read from Holy Scripture are really good. Would you love to hear a sermon on, and what does the Lord require of you but to do justice and to love kindness and to walk humbly with your God? And then, of course, to end that sermon with the Beatitudes from Matthew's Gospel. I think an annual report is fitting to begin with those words from the prophet Micah and to hear the Gospel from Matthew with the Beatitudes and blessed are, because they frame for us, I believe, what it is that we're called to be as a community of faith, as a Christian community. People called upon to do God's work in this place, in this community at this time. One of the things I want to do this morning is I wrote this report and it was like 25 minutes long, and I go, they don't want to listen to 25 minutes. They know what's going on. So what I've decided to do is to kind of give a quick talk and then open it up for questions if you have any. And then sit down and continue to worship. So how does that sound? Is that okay with you? Thanks, Fred. Thanks for your confidence. As many of you know, I study the Enneagram, and I listen to podcasts and read books and do all sorts of things. And one of the women I listen to, her name is Suzanne Stabile, and she has a saying that I think might be helpful. There's on the Enneagram, which is a sort of a psychological system, if you will, or a spiritual system. There's arguments about what it is, but there are different types. And there's a particular type called a type 2, which is a helper. In fact, they're very motivated to do everything they can to help. And then that can become a problem, right? And she has this phrase that she says, which is this mine to do? Is this mine to do? If you're a 2, or if you're in the church and you want to serve, if we're a church and we're serving the community, the question is this mine to do, is an important one to ask. During COVID, a lot of us had a lot of time to spend at home because we weren't able to go out during the shutdowns, and we got to spend time with some of us got to spend time with our children, our spouses. Some didn't have that, and they were incredibly lonely. It was a very difficult experience, and they had to look inward in ways that might have been uncomfortable. But one of the things that I liked about it as a parish priest was that it did give me some time, some time for me, some time to be with my family, to do some things that I never have seemed to have time to do when life is sort of quote unquote back to normal. And so when things began to sort of come back to normal, which isn't normal at all, is it? I asked the vestry and members of my staff to ask this question: is this mine to do? What do we want to continue to do? Are there things that we were doing before the pandemic began that we need to stop? Are there some things that after the pandemic or during the aftermath of the pandemic or the continued pandemic, are there things that we need to start doing? And so I commend that to you. I'm giving you a way out. When I come up and say, hey, would you serve on the vestry, you can say, is this mine to do? My hope is that you'll say yes, that you'll recognize the reason I'm asking you is because I think it would be something good for you to do, but you do have that way out. The outreach committee over the last few months has done some of this conversation around focus. They've come up with some statements about what they're going to do and how they're going to do it and where they're going to serve and why they're going to serve there. And they focused the work that they're going to do. Where's the energy? Where are our people? What do they want to do? Where do they want to serve? Then let's help support them, and let's do those things that we do well and continue to serve the people that we have been serving. With youth and children, Christian formation Becky has been looking and working with her folk, and they have come up with what's called the Micah Project, which is rooted in this very verse that we heard this morning, Micah verse 6:8. And the idea of our formation moving forward will be, how can we teach a lived faith? How can we work with our children at the various stages of life that they find themselves, and how can we help them to have a lived faith? By the time they leave here, we want them to not just have some Sunday school understanding of what it means to be a Christian, but a lived faith, a faith where they go into the world knowing who they are and whose they are. College ministry, we've had Gabe out on the campus now for over a year and a half. What we're discovering is it's not so much about building a group and putting butts in a seat, if you will. It's about him being present as a chaplain and as a friend who's walking with students as they begin to ask questions, as they begin to question their life. Some are questioning their faith, and he's there to walk with them in that. Others are exploring what it means to be a person of faith and walking with them in the midst of that. And the most important thing is having Gabe and others there to love the students in the midst of their confusion. It's a very confusing time as a young adult. And it is wonderful that we have someone there that is willing to walk with the students as they ask questions and as they wrestle with things that are confusing. And finally, we come to our adults, and of course we have adults of all ages, both young and old, and some in the middle. And of course, my sense is all of us at one point or another are asking ourselves, what is our purpose? I had a very wonderful parishioner in Birmingham who was on the latter 10th of his life. He was a retired doctor, and he gave me a book called What Are Old People For? What Are Old Buildings? A very helpful book. A very helpful book. Because again, the idea was that even people in the last tenths of their life were asking, what is my purpose? What can I do? Who am I? Of course, asking questions like, where is God in the midst of this? How can I make a difference? What can I do with the time I have left? These are all, important questions that the church can help come up with an answer. It seems to me that St. Matt's is, as a church, as a gathered community of faithful people, is a school of discipleship. Our role is to help young and old to learn how to follow Jesus, how to live out this faith in their lives. It's also a place of respite from the storms of life. We come together in worship and prayer, both every morning for morning prayer, then on Sundays and Wednesdays and other times. A place where we come and sing together and pray together. St. Matt's is a spiritual home where we form friendships and are encouraged to get back up and to go back out. It's a place where our friends help us gain perspective. Is this the right thing to do? Is this the best, worst thing to do? Sometimes life is complicated, and it is good to have a community of people that can help us in the midst of the confusion. Sometimes St. Matt's can be a place where you can come to have your assumptions challenged. Not here to affirm your prejudices, but to help you maybe see things in a different way. And hopefully you can come here to find a place of healing, an opportunity for growth, a place to heal your hardened hearts or your broken hearts, or have an opportunity to love more and to fail and to get up and try again. Now we have priests and deacons and lay people and others all committed to this work. We have a lot of things going on. We have some plans for the future. But really our purpose, our one purpose is to bring people to Jesus. Is to point others to what Paul says is the foolishness of the cross. So anything else that we do is a distraction. So I encourage you to think about that as you read the reports and as you look at budgets and you get frustrated when things don't go like you think they ought to go. And to remember what we are gathered for, who we are gathered for, who it is that we worship. So I end with that. Are there any questions that you have for me as your rector and priest? Anything you're concerned about? Yes, Father Nick.
I'm wondering how we finished with our stewardship program. Did we make our goal?
Nick, we'll talk about that in the treasurer's report, which follows this meeting. But yes, we did not make our goal. We still have some outstanding pledges, but we feel like we have a good way forward. So even though we didn't quite reach our goal on our pledges, we feel confident in that we're going to be able to have a good year financially this year. In 22, we did balance the budget. We ended the year with a slight overage, and so we're looking forward to that this year. One of the things I did want to say, when you look at our budget, one of the budget line items says outreach, and that outreach line item I think can be confusing, because that outreach line item does not cover what the outreach committee does. Things like Chapita Elementary and help me out. The cards at St. Stone Soup, those kinds of things. When we ask money above and beyond what is budgeted, that's the things that you're giving towards. There's not a budget line item for Stone Soup. There's not a budget line item for St. Matt's House. That outreach money is going to several things. It's in the budget, goes to the shuttle ministry, pays the insurance on the shuttle and pays for gas and all of the things that is required to operate a bus, which and the maintenance, which this year we had some maintenance expenses there. It also covers our regional contribution, which we contribute to not just the diocese, but we also contribute to the region. And of course, oftentimes the region, gives that money back when we ask for grants, but that money there, and there's a few other things. So when, not to be confusing, but just so you know, when we ask for extra giving, that is what is supporting our outreach committee and what they do. So just be aware of that. I think sometimes that gets confusing because you look at that line item and you say, well, there's $10,000 there. Why are they asking for more money? Well, we're asking for more money because that outreach line item supports some very specific things, some things that we know are going to be expensed, whereas the other things we do out of the love and the willingness of your giving. So any questions about that? Is that clear? Okay. Any other questions? Yes?
I'm just curious, I don't know if this one is me, but why is the mystic theology club, why do they meet in the bar?
Why does the Brewery Theology meet at the bar? The Brewery Theology became a movement. Several churches that I know started a brewery theology, and it was a way to take the church out into the world, meet in a place you don't expect to see, church people, and to talk theology over a beer. And what we found is that people join us. That we end up with, in fact, we have 2 or 3 people that are now coming to St. Matt's that started coming to brewery theology. So it's been successful. We typically have 12 to 15 people there. We have a few people from other churches, but it is an opportunity to meet people where they are. I had a good friend who was a Missouri Synod Lutheran pastor, so it's loaded with. But in his contract, he was required to go into the bars at least once a week to meet people, and so that is why we do that. So there you go. Yes, Nick.
We have lost some good members to alcoholism, have we?
Well, we would, that is one thing to be concerned about. We do need to be sensitive to yeah, absolutely. No, we have not lost any to alcoholism, but we are cognizant of that. So, anything else? Well, with that, if you have no more questions, then we will continue with our service.
Standing as you are able, let us join together professing our faith in the words of the Nicene Creed.